everybody. So we've had Jordan and we've had Pete talking about hotels. I'm not going to talk about hotels, but that's my background. As we rally to the finale, I'm going to talk about the finale of life. And I'm going to give you a positive spin on it, hopefully. It's a time of life when we often think that we have more history than future, but I'm going to actually show you that may not be the case. And I'm going to start with my father. This is me and my dad about a year ago in Indonesia where we were scuba diving. Right before our scuba dive in the morning, I went online to one of those online longevity sites and I threw in all of my data to see how long I was going to live. So it's 20 minutes, and in 20 minutes I found out I'm going to live till age 98. And I was 57 at that time. So I go out to go scuba diving with Dad, and I say to Dad, I didn't tell him I'd done the test, how long are you going to live, Dad? And my dad said, I'm going to live till 98. I said, wow, we're going to live till the same age? And we started talking about that, and I said, well, Dad, think about this for a minute. My dad is 80 years old in this picture. He's 81 now. I said, if you live till 98, if we start counting at age 18, your adult life, you're barely into the fourth quarter of your life. Me, at age 57 a year ago, I'm not even half-time if I start counting at age 18 and if I live to 98. What percentage of your adult life do you still have ahead of you? That's a very important question to consider given all of this life expectancy dividend we've gotten in the past 100 years. Between 1900 and 2000, we added 3 decades. It was 47-year-old was the longevity in the year 1900. It was 77 by the year 2000. So I can be a 57, now 58-year-old learning how to actually surf and learning Spanish. And I'm really bad at both. Mi español es muy malo. But if I know I have that much life ahead of me, I'm willing to try it. Imagine a world in which there was not the concept of adolescence. I know there are a few parents in the crowd who would appreciate that. So adolescence as a concept is only 115 years old. As of 116 years ago, you were a child until puberty, and you were an adult after puberty. So you got married when you're 14 or 15, you had babies by the time you're 18, you're working in the mills at 16 or 15. And then this guy, Stanley Hall, came along. And he actually created a book called Adolescence. And he said, actually, adolescence is a stage of life where people actually are going through emotional and hormonal changes, and they actually need to be guided to adulthood. They need school. And so from that point forward, adolescence as a period of life came to be known as part of the modern age. Interestingly enough, in the last 20 years, the word midolescence has actually been started to be used to describe midlife. Because midlife is full of hormonal and physical changes, emotional changes, exactly. And maybe it's the preparatory for a time of elderhood, going from adulthood to elderhood. Now, I would never, at age 52 years old, 6 years ago, said that I was an elder until I met these 3 young guys, the 3 founders of Airbnb, who called me up and said, we want you to be our head of global hospitality and strategy. For this little tech startup 6.5 years ago, I was a longtime boutique hotel entrepreneur, and I said, sure, and they wanted me to also be Brian, the guy on the right's in-house mentor, the CEO. So I said yes, but actually I didn't think of a few things. I was 52 years old. I never worked in a tech company before, so I didn't understand that lingo. I was 52 years old, and I was twice the age of the average employee in the company. The average age was 26. What else? I was going to be reporting to Brian, who was 21 years my junior. What was it going to feel like to get my first review from someone the age of my theoretical son? And in fact, 40% of us today have a boss younger than us, and by the year 2025, the majority of Americans will have a boss that's younger than them. Get ready for that, if you aren't in that situation already. Well, as I spent time there, I realized, while I was supposed to be the in-house mentor to Brian, I also was an intern. I didn't understand the tech or the millennial lingo. So I had to very quickly be as curious as I was wise. And I actually had to use that beginner's mind to sort of actually imagine things, especially around tech, that I just hadn't ever thought of. In fact, in the first photo you saw, the title photo, you saw a woman in me. That's Laura, who's 25 years younger than me. And she was one of my direct reports. And early on, she said to me, about a month into working together, she said, Chip, you know, your fact knowledge isn't very important here. It's like, what? And she said, we don't really need to know how many rooms a maid cleans in an 8-hour shift in the home sharing business. Most people don't have a maid as an Airbnb host. But she said, your process knowledge is invaluable. Your process knowledge is the wisdom you have about people. You understand organizational savvy of how to get things done, understanding the underlying motivations of everybody in the room. And especially the people not in the room that we have to get something through. And so I said, oh, that's interesting. And I started saying, okay, well, that's a good thing to know. The other thing that the team started to say to me is, our fastest growing segment of hosts in the world are people 50 and older. If you're a company full of 25-year-olds, you don't know how the 50-year-old mind works. And our best hosts in the world were women 60 and older. And our most famous people in the world, actually I'll take you there now, were these two people. These were our two most famous guests in the Airbnb world in their elder boomer years. They were a middle-aged couple. This is Debbie and Michael Campbell. Both of them were living in Seattle. They're a middle-class couple. They decided to sell their home, and because their kids turned them on to Airbnb 6.5 years ago, they actually decided they're going to spend their time going around the world living in Airbnbs. They've been in 72 countries and 250 people's homes. They're the senior nomads, and the New York Times has done profiles on them twice. So this was the people who were I just said, let's make them the voice of the customer. Let's bring them in and have them be the people who advocate for what our customers need. Because actually our employees weren't very clued into what a 74-year-old and a 65-year-old guest would want. So we brought them in for a 10-week senior internship program last year, 2 years ago. And they came in and they were amazing. Sort of reminds you of what? Yes, The Intern. Robert De Niro came in as an intern at 70 years old to help Anne Hathaway, the CEO, and ended up becoming her mentor. I was sort of the opposite. I came in as Brian's mentor and became his intern. But when my time in Airbnb taught me something, it taught me that actually there was something that I had to offer. It wasn't tech genius, that's for sure, and it frankly wasn't my hotel knowledge, but it was my individual understanding of humans, my EQ. My EQ was the thing I traded with these young millennials who I mentored, but they mentored me back. So we call this mutual mentorship. They mentored me in DQ, digital intelligence. And that EQ for DQ trade agreement is what helped me to be very successful at Airbnb. 4 years full-time, 2.5 years now as an advisor to the company. During my time at Airbnb, I started to imagine a new way to describe an elder. A word that frankly, I used to think elder and elderly were the same thing. Now I don't. Elderly is the last 5 or 10 years of your life. Elder is a relative term. If you're a 42-year-old surrounded by 22-year-olds, you're probably an elder. I started thinking about this new idea of an elder. And the elder is not the traditional elder of the past, who was regarded with reverence. No, the modern elder is actually appreciated for their relevance. And their relevance is the ability to actually take their timeless wisdom and apply it to modern day problems. That requires a modern elder to be as curious as they are wise. Curiosity opens up possibility, and wisdom distills down what's important. That's pretty important. Unfortunately, our society paradigm of how we define aging, though, is way off for that definition of how I'm defining aging. So I went back to study the caterpillar to butterfly journey. That's something always, when in doubt, go back to childhood. The caterpillar to butterfly journey. Basically, the caterpillar gets really plump, then spins itself a chrysalis, goes into the chrysalis, and actually during that time, miracles occur in that gooey, dark space. What pops out is a butterfly. Because within the cells of the caterpillar were these imaginal discs that allowed it to actually have this transformation, this metamorphosis. What if aging is not about deterioration, but what if it's about metamorphosis? So I started studying social science. Now here's what the society definition of aging is. You're gonna get to midlife crisis, you're gonna go buy a Porsche or have an affair, and then you're gonna go into the latter part of your life where you deteriorate, right? FD, right? Okay. No, don't worry. We're coming back to him. So long story short is, what the heck? This is actually the definition, our personal definition of contentment. We actually go through this is called the U-curve of happiness. Across all cultures, from 25 to 45, we get less happy for all kinds of reasons. I won't go into it now. From 45 on, we get happier. Every single decade, we get happier until about the last 5 or 10 years of life. Well, this society, the personal narrative does not match society narrative. So here is my transformational journey of life based upon the caterpillar to butterfly. What if we actually are this young embodied, emerging adult young in our life? Then we become an embodied adult, which takes us to the cocoon. The cocoon is midlife, which is dark and gooey sometimes. But out of that dark and gooey time comes this metamorphosis. And on the other side of it, we are this embodied elder and actually valued in society because we have wisdom. The more power moves to young people faster and faster, the more those young people could use some wise old souls in their midst. And at the end of the day, you're an elderflower. So what I like about this design is it actually becomes a butterfly. Yes. Why not? Why not imagine that life's aging process is not only about deterioration. It's about increasing your intuition, increasing your emotional intelligence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's why I created this social enterprise called the Modern Elder Academy, because we hear about lifelong learning, but where the heck do we do it? There isn't a place, really. I mean, you might do it in your company. This company does a great job of learning and development, but most companies don't. And so we created the world's first midlife wisdom school. We have a 3.5-acre campus right on the beach in Mexico, an hour north of Cabo San Lucas in Baja. And people come, 500 people have come from 17 countries for a week-long program to learn how to mine their mastery and to repurpose it in new ways. The idea behind it is to have an investment banker who's 45 and rich but has no purpose, sitting next to a 62-year-old social worker who has a lot of purpose but no money. And the two of them go off for a walk on the beach, and they solve their own problems and the world's problems at the same time. So this is a sign upstairs in front of your archives. I was here last year for Signal, and I saw this. This is a beautiful sign and shows how far ahead P&G is relative to the rest of the world. Because most companies have their institutional wisdom walk out the door every day, and people feel more and more irrelevant as they get older. You have solved that. Generally, and you have created a mastery society, which I love. This is basically a society for modern elders, and you've been doing it for 50 or 60 years. So just to finish up, this is my role model. His name's Peter Drucker. He's no longer living, but he lived till age 95. Famous, wrote 40 books, management theorist. He wrote 2/3 of his 40 books after the age of 65. Every 2 years, he studied a new subject that had nothing to do with being a business professor or author, everything from Japanese ikebana to medieval war strategies, because it lubricated his mind and his soul. He's the guy who basically 60 years ago created this term, knowledge workers, because he said the future is all about knowledge and information, and how do we use that as a tool? Fine, but today, 60 years later, knowledge is in your pocket. It's in that, that smartphone you've got, because Google has all that knowledge. And actually we're awash in knowledge, but what we really need is wisdom. So there's a scarcity of wisdom. And I think it's time for us to retire the phrase knowledge worker and replace it with wisdom worker. Because in an era of artificial intelligence, what's not artificial is human intuition and emotional intelligence. And as we grow as organizations and teams, we need more of that. And now's my gratuitous slide. Literally, 45 minutes ago, I was upstairs in the cafe with FD. FD invited me last year, FD invited me again this year. And I didn't know until last night that FD, and most of you don't know this, but he said I can say it. Today's FD's last day. He loves you, don't worry. But he's a guy who's been here for 38 years. For 38 years, he has grown into a modern elder. You are an amazing company to create the kind of place where someone wants to spend 38 years growing their wisdom. What I asked him upstairs is, how does he define wisdom? And he said it's humility with let me make sure I get it right. Humility with enough curiosity to have a beginner's mind so that you can ask the what if and why not questions. I suggest to you, ask more what if and why not questions. It will turn you into a modern elder. Thank you so much.